All right, let's get right into it. What if I told you that some dusty old book from the 1700s isn't actually a history book? What if it's really a weapon? A cover story, something designed to completely wipe out a huge piece of human history. Well, today we're going to try and crack open this coded chronicle. And fair warning, it might just flip everything you think you know on its head.
And this right here, this is the heart of the whole thing. The theory we're diving into says that this book, which was supposed to create a totally fake past, actually did the exact opposite. It accidentally saved the very truth it was designed to destroy. It's like a confession, hidden in plain sight, just waiting for someone to notice.
So what are we talking about here? The book is called Allgemeine Geschichte der Länder und Völker von Amerika. It came out way back in 1752, and on the surface it looks like just a big, boring history book. But the theory we're looking at says, nope, not even close. It's actually a key weapon in something called narrative warfare.
And what does that even mean, right? Well, the idea is that history isn't just a collection of facts about what happened. It's a story. And stories can be written, they can be twisted, they can be controlled. So this wasn't just about fudging some dates in a textbook. It was about manufacturing an entirely new reality for the Americas, a reality that just so happened to perfectly benefit the people taking over.
So if you're going to pull off a conspiracy this big, who do you hire? A famous historian? Some brave explorer? Nah. You get a guy like Johann Friedrich Schröter. He was a bureaucrat, a government paper pusher. And according to this theory, that made him the perfect guy for the job. His task wasn't to discover history, it was to compile it, to take all the raw intelligence, clean it up, and package it into the official story they wanted everyone to believe.
Okay, so where's this intelligence coming from? Well, it came from Jesuit missionaries, guys like Lafitteau and Charlevoix. But we're not talking about your average Sunday school teachers here. The theory goes that these guys were basically spies. They were the boots on the ground, the field agents whose real mission was to map out and document everything. All the ruins, all the survivors of this lost world, right before the order came down to wipe it all from the history books.
And this is where it gets really clever. They didn't just print this book in some back alley shop. No, they published it in Halle, which was a huge intellectual hotspot at the time. They even got a big-shot professor to give it a stamp of approval. So this thing wasn't some crazy pamphlet from the fringe. It was like a targeted missile launched straight into the brain of European high society, giving it instant street cred.
All right, now let's get to the really juicy stuff, the pictures, the evidence you can see with your own eyes. The theory claims that the book's illustrations, these engravings that were supposed to show a simple, primitive world, well, they accidentally captured something else. They captured the ghosts of a massive, super-advanced empire that wasn't supposed to exist.
And this is where the official story just completely falls apart, according to this theory. We're taught that Cusco was the capital of the Incas, right? And Mexico City was the Aztec center. But look at what these pictures actually show. The claim is that these aren't original cities at all. They're just survivor camps, basically, built on top of the ruins of a truly massive, worldwide civilization. Some people call it Tartaria, an ancient empire with incredible architecture that was everywhere.
Okay, just look at this breakdown of Cusco. It's wild. You see the bottom layer? These huge, megalithic stones all fitted together with laser-like precision. That's supposedly from the old empire. Now, look at the stuff built on top. It's kind of crude, right? Just smaller, rougher stones. That's the Inca work. The conclusion here is pretty stark. You're looking at two completely different civilizations. One primitive society literally living on the wreckage of a technological giant.
So you gotta ask, right? If there was this global superpower, what in the world could have taken it down? The theory points to one single, horrifying event that hit the entire planet, a catastrophe they call the Mud Flood.
The idea behind it is actually pretty simple to picture. Imagine a beautiful, tall building from this old empire. Then, bam! Some kind of cataclysm happens, and tons of mud and dirt bury the bottom few floors. All of a sudden, what used to be the first floor is now a basement, and people just start over, building their new lives on top of all that debris. That's the theory of the Great Reset in a nutshell.
And the proof, according to this theory, has been hiding in these pictures the whole time. You ever wonder why you see windows basically at sidewalk level? Or doors that just open into a wall of dirt? The argument is that the artist wasn't drunk or making mistakes. No way. He was drawing exactly what he saw, a world that had been buried. These aren't goofs, they're scars.
Okay, the buildings tell one hell of a story, but what about the people? How does the book actually show the people living in this quote-unquote new world? Well, get this. The claim is that these drawings aren't just some artist's fantasy. They're supposed to be incredibly accurate records of who was actually there.
Now, your typical art historian will tell you, oh, that's just artistic license. You know, the European artist didn't know what these people looked like, so he just drew them to look like ancient Greeks or Romans. That was common. But this theory? It just throws that whole idea out the window. It says no, he was drawing what he saw, that these people actually looked like that, because they were the direct descendants of a global classical civilization.
And once you start looking for it, the clues are supposedly everywhere. I mean, check it out. The people are drawn with these classical, almost European features. Their clothes look a lot like Roman togas. They've even got wooden posts carved to look like stone columns. The takeaway here is these people weren't savages at all. They were the heirs of a fallen empire, literally wearing the tattered remains of their former glory. Okay, so let's just say for a second that any of this is even remotely true. The one question that just screams out is, why? Why would anyone go through all this trouble to fake history on a planetary scale? Well, that's what we're going to dig into now. Let's try to connect the dots and figure out the motive behind this so-called Great Erasure. It really all comes down to the timing. Look at this. The book comes out in 1752. Then, just 7 years later, bam, a massive coordinated crackdown on the Jesuits, who were super powerful at the time, starts all over Europe. The theory says that's no accident. It was a hostile takeover by what they call a New World Order. And this book was their story, the script they needed to justify it all.
And that's the bottom line, isn't it? According to this source, the whole thing, the spying, the writing, the publishing, it all had one purpose: to create a permission slip, a legal, and more importantly, a moral excuse for the conquest that was already underway.
I mean, just think about it for a second. If you can convince the world that the people living somewhere are just primitive savages who don't even understand the concept of owning land, well, then you can legally just take it. It's nobody's land, right? Terra nullius. All of a sudden, you're not invading, you're on a civilizing mission. And this book, the theory goes, was the propaganda blueprint for that entire playbook.
And this final quote just says it all really. The idea isn't that a new empire was discovered, it's that an old one was erased. Think about that. The Age of Discovery wasn't about finding new places, it was about finding the ruins of an old world, and then scrubbing the memory of the original builders from existence.
So in the end, looking at this old book this way makes you ask a really big question. It kind of suggests that history isn't set in stone. It's a story that can be edited. And if a lie or a truth this huge could be hidden in plain sight inside a book for centuries, well, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What else is hiding right in front of our eyes, just waiting for us to look a little closer?